resonance there.
Goodbye, Miles. Miles has decided to leave right as we recorded.
Yeah, Matt hit record and maybe it's some secret kick
Miles
Miles
was like,
off button.
"Oh,
But
I'm
he'll be back
scared.
soon. Yeah,
I'm scared.
oh,
Scared of.
he's back. He's connecting to audio.
Christ.
Don't cut this. It's solid gold.
Oh,
You know where it says recording in progress
scary
and it says
podcast is scary.
there's two
Ooh.
buttons. There's one that says cool, I'm okay with recording in progress.
And one that says
the other
no.
button says fuck this, I'm out.
Is this like that
Oh.
meme where there's a guy who's sweating bullets and he has like the one button choice?
Pretty much.
Oh my god. All right, sorry about that.
All right, well that is perfect. Perfect start. We had a good resonant hello, and then we waited for you and talked about why you
Welcome to the
disappeared.
podcast.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah. For everyone
Welcome
who's,
to Always Strikes Last.
Yeah. You made it this far through an extended jazzy and spicy intro, so you deserve a
Indeed.
medal. Stay a while and listen.
Exactly. I'm Deckard Kane. Oh, good stuff. Good to be back on the podcast train.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Feels like New Year, dusting the cobwebs off the mental gears after holiday stuff. We already recorded one episode, but I still feel like we're getting back in the speed of things here.
Yeah, I don't think we're not off cadence or anything, right? But
no, we're on.
I feel off cadence.
Yeah, I feel like
we're just stretching, getting into new socks. Got to wear them in a little bit, then wear the new shoes in. It's a new year,
true.
new shoes.
Speaking of Matt, is that a new Skull and Crossbones coffee mug we got there?
No, I've had this thing for
looks
a couple of years now.
But can you buy it on our merch store on Redbubble?
That would be cool if you could, but then I'd be stealing somebody else's design.
That's true. Luckily, the Skull and Crossbones isn't like copyrighted, but anyway.
My apartment is literally turning into that one art studio that has like 400 coffee cups. You know that art studio.
Mm-hmm. It's good. It's a good one.
Yeah. All of which will have weird little sayings on them that don't really mean much to anybody, which is pretty funny. And then there's that one corn red, Games Workshop cup that for some reason I was like, oh yeah, I have to buy this.
Nice. It's just the Pantone square and it's corn red.
Yeah, it just says Games Work. It's like Citadel Miniatures corn red. It's like, looking back at that isn't even a fun design. It's literally just spelling out the name of a color.
It actually is from Games Workshop and says corn red.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just red. That's the whole mug.
Yeah.
Did it come like as one of a potential like full paint range collectible set, one for each paint range, and each mug is $50? Because
no, I think I went out of my way to get it, which is even worse.
Nice.
I guess speaking of Games Workshop branded stuff, I occasionally will go that way. I'm actually wearing the Games Workshop Daughters of Cain sweater.
Very nice.
Right now. Yeah, it has some witch elves fighting some demonettes. And the funny thing is, like, I don't just wear this to Warhammer events. I kind of wear it in real life, and then every once in a while I'll realize, oh yeah, this is kind of a spicy thing to be wearing to my work meeting or to my daycare.
There you go. Matt went and fetched the corn red mug.
So literal.
People can't see this, but it's literally just one of those mugs that you get at like a mall kiosk where they can't even like print up higher than the lid or anything. And they're just like, yep, cool. We're going to slap some color on this and then charge probably like $70 or whatever I paid for it.
High quality merchandise there.
Yeah. I don't want to make this a pod we're not going to be one of those podcasts where we just like bash GW all the time, but their merch game leaves something to be desired.
Oh man, I don't know. Kimmy got me the squig socks for Christmas. They still haven't come, so I don't know if that's a different type of bashing that we do for Games Workshop.
Every once in a while they make something that's like pure gold, but then you like look at their t-shirt range and like I'm like, I even play some of these armies and these t-shirts suck.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I've had some funny experiences with those. I bought a few of those t-shirts, over the years, and I think it's like a 33% hit rate. Like fits well, good t-shirt. Use like a polyester tri-blend or something that looks
Hmm.
comfortable and feels comfortable. And most of the time, it's just like the worst material and the sizing. I don't know, just some sort of hobgoblin in the hills was used to model this for people, and it doesn't fit at all.
Yeah, having done like band merch for years, like it really is a crapshoot when you're trying to get like good fit shirts. Like even Hanes, when you're ordering those, which are like bottom of the barrel shirts, like
Hmm.
you're still never going to get the same cut. And so, like, each of them will always retain the ink differently. And if you're
Yeah,
doing the
yeah, yeah.
screen press yourself, like it's a process, which
Oh, sure.
I feel like it almost puts me into that, like too much forgiveness territory when it comes to
I
any
hear you.
shirts.
Yeah.
But like, I think I agree. I feel like they need to kind of step up on some of the merch stuff. Like for those who like the full like sweat outfit that's like a space marine
Oh,
suit or
yeah.
something, like good for you, but that's like I don't know, man. Like that I feel like that's their extreme of like
Yeah,
we're going to
yeah.
do something awesome and it's like okay, well that looks like it's it's just folding a lot. It's not very
Yeah.
space marine-ish.
Well,
Yeah,
like
that's
I feel like they have such good IP that would lend itself so well to shirts. Like I got a Reichland Reaver shirt from them
mhm.
when the new edition of Blood Bowl came out. And Jack, to your point, it's an awful material and it fits me poorly. But but they did a great
That's the
job
one
on the
I
logo.
That's the thing, right? I mean, I think maybe it was the same generation or one removed. I was in Nottingham. I of
Yeah.
course made myself buy some like souvenirs there at Warhammer World. So I got like a Nottingham Nightmares or something like Dark Elf shirt, and that is like the one I think of as like the worst fitting shirt of all time. It's
Yeah.
unwearable. Probably give it to my cat.
Uh,
But you know, though I will say to give them some credit, not to be a GW basher.
no,
One of the
absolutely.
gold things I found there was I found some limited edition Bugman's mug, which is like hand fired clay. I guess it's out there. Still use
Oh
it.
wow.
Awesome mug, very distinctive, and that was a goodie. They did
I
Nice.
good.
mean,
Yeah, no. This
in
is not that
addition
they don't ever have, pure gold there sometimes,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and some of their stuff just doesn't have a good brand, right? Like, um, some armies just don't have the best iconography, I would say.
Sure. Looking at you,
But
Crimson Fist.
yeah, but Skaven will always win, no matter what they print. If you just go and look at the store, you'll want to buy the Skaven stuff
That
Yeah.
because
seems
it's
that
just that
seems
good.
fair.
Skaven have the best PR team. Rats.
All right. Well, guys, absent any evidence to the contrary, we are a podcast about
We
competitive Age of
we did have a
Sigmar.
topic for today, God
Yeah,
damn it.
and
Oh, we
related
did.
things. And
That's
because we
right.
do host this podcast about it, we do like Games Workshop. And, let's let's dive into it. I think that the thing for today is topically, I will be running an RTT locally here in Massachusetts at the TJ's Cafe store on Sunday of January 28th. And of course, anyone come if they want to, if they're around. It'd be a lot of fun. 20 player event. But the topic is how do you run an event as a TO? Because I have never done so before, and this will be a real journey for me. Hopefully, it isn't terrible. That's my preamble.
Yeah. No, Jack, this is gonna be great. And it's so much easier and so much harder than you think it is.
Yeah, yeah, it's both. It's very
That
much both.
sounds like I would expect it to be. Hopefully, yeah, fair enough.
It's very much both.
Well,
Um,
that's I think that's a fun topic for today, right? So, like, what are the pitfalls? What is easier? What is harder? What should I be avoiding? And also, guys, shamelessly plug how fun it's going to be too. Don't make this me say it. All of our listeners need to
Yeah.
know.
oh, I mean, a tournament in and of itself, by definition, is fun. Even a bad tournament is fun, right? Because there's like just to get it out of the way. A
Mm,
bunch of people as a tournament organizer, what you're going to be able to do, provided you're not playing the buy, is you're going to
mm,
be able to like watch all those moments that happen in your game that are like
mm,
oh right, you're going to see that on every table, which is
mm,
really fun actually, kind of
Yeah.
rewarding in its own way, because you get to see the crux of each game, essentially. Unless you're just like waffling off, which sometimes you got to waffle off.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
you can't pay attention to the entire time. You're gonna yeah. If you have to go take some breaks and maybe you brought something to paint or whatever. But
That seems fair. Well, I feel like I'm already in the right track because I made the decision with this one to not try to like concurrently play in it, A, because of the first one, and B, because I want to kind of like, make sure I have that side of the experience. And C, because my assistant that day is not going to be very helpful in terms of relaxation. Little Miss Eve will be along, watching the
oh,
scenes,
nice,
keep
nice.
people
Oh, she's
honest.
gonna be great.
Yeah,
You can have her hand out all the papers. I'm sure she'll be very good at
Yeah,
that'll be good.
and that's
I might
the
trust her with that.
that's the first thing I would recommend is print double the amount that you think you're going to need because A, you can use them in the future, and B, people are going to lose them. I don't know how many times I've had to
Oh,
just be
dude,
like, oh, you don't know how to score? Here you go.
yeah,
Oh, take that. So always, if you're setting up a tournament, make sure that you got all your papers ahead of time. It's
So,
just handy
mhm.
handy for all the players there, and it's handy for yourself, right? Like if you're running around doing a bunch of things, it's nice to just have something to refer to
yeah.
as
See, that's
well.
gonna be an interesting thing, and maybe like thing one for me to keep in mind. Already a fruitful result from our discussion here at the podcast is A, have papers and maybe think ahead of time of which ones are important to have brought
Yeah,
not only singles but
exactly.
duplicates and triplicates with. I mean, I got the player pack written already. It should be posted this
Nice.
afternoon or something by person helping with it for the shop. But once that's up and going, yeah, I got to make sure have some instruction to paint a rubric. Maybe there's a score sheet to make their life easier. I
Sure.
am expecting them to bring their own dice and tokens and everything, but we got terrain, we got tables, we got mats.
Nice.
We're ready for like the fundamentals.
So I've been doing this thing for working with the Irish team, which is I've been pushing everybody. My soapbox is that Team Ireland needs to not just field a competent team at Worlds and at Six Nations and whatever. We also need to be investing in the community and building up the Irish AOS community. And so as part of that, I've been assembling a spreadsheet of every club and every store that I can get my hands on it's in the country, right? And
Mhm.
then trying to reach out to them and be like, "Hey, what do you need?" Like I can't give you a whole lot, I'm just one guy. I'm not going to go out and run your tournaments for you, but can I give you packets? Can I give you like what do you need? What do we need to get more people to play AOS in your store or at your club?
Mm.
Um, so like from a very basic standpoint, you need 4 to 6 friends. You
Mhm. Mhm. That seems fundamental.
to play a 3 round event, you need 4 to 6 friends. If you have four, you can do it like in a round robin where everybody plays each other once, and then you just do a score evaluation. And if you want to do a bracket, you need six. 8 is better. Um, 3 rounds are fun because it takes all day and you feel exhausted at the end. Otherwise, I don't know why we do 3 rounds. 4 would be tough to do in a day.
Very much
Uh,
doable. I know some
yeah.
some places have done it, but not very fun.
Matt, here's a
Yeah.
question. How long are your rounds?
So I've so this is something that I as a TO have been trying to A enforce and B am just a little bit tired with as a player. I know part
Hmm.
of my experience as a player bleeds into my TOing. I rounds now are going 230 and that's kind of what people expect.
Sure.
Which is why we have that the tournament timer that we have up on the YouTube channel
Hmm.
is at 2:30 because most people are expecting to see that.
Yeah.
I think that's too short, and I think people need less time to make their decisions so they can make them on the fly. I would
Wait,
love to
you think it's
see,
too long?
or sorry, too
Hmm.
long.
Oh.
I think I need more coffee too. The
Speaking of that, Matt, and just to not add more confusion to the mix, but I've actually used our tournament timer in this pack as a thing I'm
oh
suggesting people to put up on their phone.
Oh, very
And I
nice.
set the rounds, much as they were at Everwinter, to 3 hours, which is also the amount of time in the tournament timer.
Oh, see, coffee. So that's the setup, which I don't include in game time.
Ah, that's it. Yeah.
So generally a round it goes 3 hours with 2 hours and 30 minutes as playtime. I set the tournament timer to 30 minutes just because I want to give people extra time to walk through their list, talk with people, get from table to table, and
Yeah.
provide the extra room
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I think people
we're
need.
100% online there. That's exactly what I was thinking too. But I was thinking as part of the
Sure.
game.
Yeah. So each round, yeah, then 3 hours, which I think is a little bit much. We could go down to 2 hours and 30 minutes. Um, I find that when people have more time to think about something, they're making better choices, and that just I want some chaos, you know.
Yeah, you want
I'm
the
an
speed
agent of
chest of
chaos.
Warhammer.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want the speech as a warhammer. But the no the time limits. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's I think it's more important to make sure that people are aware of where they're at in their round.
Mhm.
Because I know I'll
Sure.
get over invested in certain things. My armies, when I play it, usually the first turn is the longest turn because of movement shenanigans, ambushes, etc. So that's
Mhm.
the majority of my game. And the rest is really just kind of like um, picking up after those first two turns.
Sure.
So for me, I think it's very important to let people know where they're at in game. I make it a point to kind of go
Mhm.
around and give the you're an hour in or you're a half hour in,
Yeah. Yeah.
depending on how reading the room, right?
That's a fair thing. Okay, so that makes sense, and I think that's probably super appreciated for people kind of
Yeah.
in their head. They
It
just kind of need that reminder.
it definitely helps to check in, especially with people who, maybe have not played a tournament or lots of tournaments before, and not only tell them how much time they have left, but give them like, hey, what round is this? Are you guys on round three yet? Because you guys should be
Yeah,
thinking about round three around now, or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
and it becomes
that's pretty fair.
even
which
more
again,
important.
uh, goes back to that our sweet YouTube timer tells you what round you should be in, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And by all means, if you're using that, comment on that what you want to see next, because like that's the first one. We're doing a couple of others for the people in the Discord, like personalized ones. But if there's other things you want to practice to, by all means, let us know.
Yeah.
Comment on that.
Yeah,
But I'm
and
diverting.
say if there's something that could make it more useful to you that you just don't see there, you wish it was present.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
the other
oh,
thing,
go for it.
before we move out of the time thing, the other thing that's super important that you need to set the precedent on early on, because it can help keep bad feels from coming in, or that after game me,
Yeah.
is to make sure whether or not you're going to enforce dice down. Um,
Yes,
that
I was going to
is,
ask about that and what you guys were thinking. Like, how do you handle that? Like, if you don't say it, of course, it becomes dicier. But if you do, like, how strict are you guys?
I mean, I've gotten to the point where it's pretty strict. I don't like people to start playing before the round if they get there early. I don't like people to start playing or to continue playing after the round. I give them the 15
Mhm.
minutes and it's dice down,
Hmm.
right? And if somebody's still going, they have to talk it out. And that's more because um, if it's a neck and neck game, they took way too long. They shouldn't get extra privileges, to be 100% honest.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but that's me being a little bit harsh because
Well,
A, I need to go to lunch, and B, they need to go to lunch, and C, when you're just continually going afterwards, whether or not it actually impacts your game, the perception is from other players and from your opponent that it is impacting your game. You had extra time to make that choice. You had extra time to get that win.
right.
And I don't find that to be a fair outcome, perceived or otherwise, right? So
Sure. So, um, to just sort of go through what the most strictest end of this is. At Six Nations, you play with chess clocks, right?
Hmm.
And you have an hour and a half per person, and the clock starts the second you roll attacker defender. You roll attacker defender, I pick attacker, boom, the clock has started.
Does the clock include deployment time?
The clock includes
Yes, it
deployment
does.
time.
Interesting. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so to your point, Matt, if the round has gone to time, that means one or both players have run out of their clock, at which point they are only allowed to make defensive rolls,
Yep. Yeah.
right?
And sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, there's no dispelling spells, there's no rolling attack rolls. You can roll saves and you can roll wards, and that's it.
Which is nice, but
Interesting.
you have to enforce the chess clocks on that.
Yeah,
Which
but so to your point, Matt, if someone has gone to the round time, that means both players should only be allowed to make defensive rolls from there on,
mhm.
in my opinion. You know?
No, totally.
So like
Yeah.
the game is done. No one is doing anything else. You're done.
I think,
Yeah.
for this one for sure, because there's sort of like a narrow window between like rounds as well as lunch because we're doing it Sunday.
Yeah,
There will be probably a 5 minute grace period. People are just trying to get a few last things done at the end of each round if they really need it. But then let you
yeah.
dice down, talk it out, submit the score. Let us continue.
And Jack, you will know very early in each round who is going to be the guys going to time. Like
Yeah.
it's very obvious pretty fast.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. I'll have to set the expectations, but this is a good thing to have avoided. So I think
Absolutely.
number one on the
Well,
list.
and honestly, to keep it kind of above board for everybody, you can make that 5 minute grace period the actual last 5 minutes of the game, right? Like at the point that you have 5 minutes left in the game, it's like, look, are you guys going to finish this turn with both of you being able to play? No? Walk
That's
through
it.
it. Walk
Yeah.
through it.
Yep. I think that's fair. Keep things tight. All right, so that's some good stuff. I think on the basics we kind of talked about, like, obviously you need to make sure you have enough tables and terrain and things like that.
Mhm.
What else do
Yeah,
you guys have as a spicy thing?
absolutely recommend, right? 8 pieces of terrain per table.
Hmm.
2 of them should be wildwoods. 2 of them should be small garrisons. I'm a big fan of one of every piece, one of every type of uh effect.
Mm,
There's one dam, there's one mystical, there's like just I mean, which isn't to say, Jack, go out and make a bunch of tokens, but like that's my preferred setup. Obviously, rolling forward is also fine.
Yep,
See,
yep.
I've gone to the exact opposite, which is I mirror each side of the table so that
Yeah.
there's no like shady area of like, oh, that piece of terrain lost me the game. It's like, no, you're coming in. If you want to play in a tournament and you want to play competitively, you're gonna get the exact mirror on each
Nice.
side.
Playing StarCraft maps.
All of my terrain bases, like the area is
Yeah.
standardized so that
Hmm.
like there's no kind of like, oh, if had I not gotten into my opponent's garrison,
Sure.
yada 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 yada, right? Or that
Yep.
piece of terrain was bigger than the other. Blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
I like the idea of it. Like, here's your even field.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I do think there's something really interesting about making the terrain predictable, and it's not always, possible, when you're just running a local event.
Hmm.
But, if there is somebody in your area that you can reach out to that runs events, they might have terrain maps,
Yeah,
and it's very powerful to know where the trees are going to be on every mission, you know? And
yeah,
then you can start to really play around them and leverage them and have the terrain be impactful. Whereas when it's kind of random, it's who knows?
yeah. It can be off kilter, or just like if people are placing terrain, it can just be like, oh, well, I really don't want that right here, so I'm just going to set this way off to the side where nobody's going to use it, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Well, it's good food for thought. I've definitely enjoyed that myself in tournament packs. Like the Everwinter, had those kind of. I think it was the Old Town Throwdowns map we were been using, but it was really good. And I think
Hmm.
it's a ethos I might pursue in the future. And this one, we're set up mainly due to store constraints.
No,
Local
exactly.
local events, kind of set all the terrain up the night before. No one touches it. I'll let them talk out the rationality of
Nice.
what is what.
And you do need to sometimes move the terrain around because each piece of terrain has to be 3 inches from all other pieces of terrain.
Exactly. They might have a faction
So
terrain, obviously within reason, but it was one of those things I was considering. I was putting the pack together. Like, oh, do I go this route or that route? So that's some good food for thought.
there's
Yeah,
a
I
couple
even
missions where it's actually hard to get the terrain in, like ice fields. We were practicing that the other day, and because of the ring of objectives, it's such a tight ring.
mhm.
Do you put two pieces of terrain in the ring? You can't. It's like
Hmm.
it's difficult. And then, but if you don't, then it feels like the middle of the board is like this no man's land of, like it feels like old fantasy of just go fight in the middle, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, there's a green field. Good thing we found one. Couldn't possibly find anywhere else. Not in that
Yeah,
mire, not in that close forest.
exactly.
Speaking of which, we should divvy up a little time today to this particular topic of this old world Warhammer fantasies. It seems to be rearing its ugly head. But before we move on to that, let me just plug this tournament one more time, everybody.
Oh,
One, it
absolutely.
will be a lot of fun because this venue, TJ's Cafe and Games, is really cool. It's huge. There's more space you've ever seen, like at a Warhammer club. Great
Nice.
tables, great terrain, really immersive when they're set up right. You're not going to be run over by a bunch of Magic players. Everyone has their zone for what they need. And they actually have a built-in cafe, which serves everything from like coffees and ice creams and cakes and cookies to like chicken fingers, fries, and various like lunch items. They don't have to go anywhere. It's super convenient for playing games. So
You
have
sold
20
me a chicken
spots.
fingers.
Yeah, I had you a chicken fingers. But 20 spots, $25 an entry, obviously plenty of prize support, once we get to the bottom of that. So come on by if you're free on that Sunday. Good practice for Captain Con if anyone was going to that the following week.
And before we move on, the last thing I would recommend is if you have access to all the players that are going to be in the tournament, only listen to them half the time because they will just ask you for everything. But the thing you want to be prepared for
Yeah,
is make sure that you have as many of the FAQs and questions about rules interactions out of the way beforehand. That way, there's no like find out later from players about certain rules interactions that maybe didn't go their
Sure.
way, and somebody was convinced it was supposed to be this way, and the other person acquiesced and then came up later.
Yeah.
I think the main rule of a TO is to try and make all the players feel encouraged about playing their games, right? And then ultimately kind of like setting a stage for
Yeah.
awesome interactions. So
And the good news is that the AOS app, they update it so that, the FAQs are built into the rules most of the time, or they're easily accessible. If there's an actual errata, they'll change
mhm.
the rule. And yeah, if you do have to make a call, Jack, um, just make a call
Yeah.
and don't worry. Like, don't if it turns out you were wrong later, don't worry about it. You had to make
that
a call in the
that's
moment, and that's the thing. You're like, wipe your conscience of it. Obviously
Sorry,
don't try
King
to make bad
Geezer.
calls, but
fair enough. I'm gonna take that to heart because I kind of, for some reason, I was just, getting ready to do some other thing yesterday, and that thought occurred to me, and it did make me nervous for a second. Like, what if there's
It
some arcane rules interaction I don't have like identically memorized to then
sure.
give the correct answer in the moment too? But yeah, we're all
Uh,
human. I think that's a fair assessment.
I think
yeah, it's
every
gonna
TO I've
happen.
ever met has gotten it wrong at least
Yeah.
once.
Yeah, I'll call myself out on the last on Squigmus. We had a rules interaction of wards within a wholly within range, right?
Mhm.
And
Okay.
uh, Congeezer was pulling dryads and got himself right into the range, and I had to play by, so I was completely like all over the place. So I gave him the
Mhm.
wrong rules. Went back, said, "Hey man, that was the wrong one. Did it affect your game?" He's like, "No." Most of the time that's going to be what it is, right? So like you're human, they're human, we is human. So
Fair enough. Well, good stuff, guys. Thanks for the prep, and the thoughts in this. Hopefully, it'll be a really good first ASL/TJ's tournament in the area. Good to get one on the map for us over here.
yeah.
Nice.
And yeah, excited about it.
No, it works. I'm excited for you. That's always fun. And those local events are so critical to build it. If you in all likelihood, if you're listening to this podcast you're playing at tournaments or trying to play at tournaments, you're probably a GT fiend like the rest of us. But those one-dayer events are so critical for that
Yeah.
pipeline of I've never played, I've thought about playing, I play at my local store, I play at the GT.
Yeah,
Well,
but you
and to
don't jump
like
straight to GT, not
You
and
generally.
know?
to further that too, like an RTT is a great place to practice, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you have a lot of tournaments, a lot of RTTs out there. You can throw out an experimental list where you know you're going to be facing people that may not necessarily be your local group,
Sure.
and that will actually give you some experience of like, okay, how does this work for that? And it's not going to lower your score too much because if you're using is it a Best Coast pairings app, you have 4 of those a year, I think,
Hmm.
and it's really easy to replace a low score. I hope it's 4, otherwise forgetting something could be 5. But
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
I think
go to
that's
enough
right.
RTTs, you can replace your bottom score with that. But it's also, again, it's a great place to go in, play an experimental army, play
Yeah.
something that
I
you think has teeth, but you need to test it against somebody that's not knowing the intricacies of how you think, how you work, etc. Um, which is what can happen when you're just playing with a local gaming group or a local opponent.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's like an honest look at like how that arm is going to be, but also a little bit less crazy than like the 2 day time commitment, a larger event. It's more of a good testing ground.
yeah, and I'll pull up the instance. For instance, the force that you brought, to the last GT,
Oh,
Jack.
are you talking about my Chaos Hipster Force? Yes,
The
that would have
Chaos Hipsters,
been.
had you had one day to work out all the kinks, you probably would have done a lot better.
I think you're right. I think there were just a couple little micro adjustments coming off of that would have been dialing it
Yeah.
in more, or just practice on it.
Yeah. And that's where the RTTs really help. You get 3 games, 3 games of practice if you want, or you can go in and be that guy. It's like, screw this. I'm bringing my GT army. I'm coming in. I'm going to stomp.
Oh
Which
yeah.
I did stomp.
Oh, so fun. Very, very true. That was definitely a good call out there because you go in, you wing it with something good. You just don't have time to get the things to gel properly,
Yeah.
and an environment like that's the right place to make that happen.
Yeah. It's a
Competitive,
wonderful
but also a
litmus
little
test.
less intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good on that. Good on that. Well, guys, you got about 10 minutes left. What do we say we take a little detour to a place that had been forgotten, but Games Workshop has resurrected into a whole new old game, but with
It's the
one very
as I say,
prevailing problem.
it's the comic book effect. Nothing can stay dead. That's
No, I
Yeah.
think they've had their
Yeah.
time in the coffin. Now they're back. Well,
exactly. And with long hair and a weird costume, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Hmm.
Now, I'll preface this, listenership, and that we probably will do a separate episode at some point just to talk about the old world in more depth. But we kind of thought it'd be a fun, spicy side topic today to speak to specifically one extremely vexing problem with the old world versus the current new world, I guess, the Age of Sigmar, which is round bases versus square bases, and dealing with the fact that no one likes rebasing. How do we avoid this? Because sometimes the same army is present in both.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or you've gone through and rebased all of your wood elves, every
Yeah.
single one.
Yeah.
You're not bringing them back. They're wanderers now, whatever they call them before they discontinued them in the US. Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
actually
You
have a little
rebase
bit
them so
of
they can get squatted.
I have a bit
I'm
of
not
good news on this front,
frustrated at all.
actually.
Yeah, you do.
Which is that well, and I don't want to speak for every army, so we're not going to do that, but I can
Mhm.
speak for dwarfs, which is the one army I looked into. And all AOS dwarf models, all the sort of the old world ones that would be available are currently on 25 circles, right? And
Mhm.
the new bottom of the new infantry base, square base is 25 square.
See, that's
Perfect.
that's the kind of thinking I'm talking about. I mean,
So you
well,
can get those little clip-ons, or you can find a big tray that they all slot into.
that's
So,
that's exactly, I think, the move. But oh, Matt, you're gonna
Um,
say something.
so I
yeah.
don't know about you guys, but I still have a ton of magnetized movement trays.
Hmm.
And most of the base sizes remaining the same. I'm just gonna plop them on there, put some little like sculpt some corners, and just mush it in. Use some what do you call it, Vaseline or like some kind of agent to make sure it doesn't stick to the base,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I
then
could see
plop everything in.
putting in little corner fillers between your models that
Yeah,
mag on. That'd be very cool. That's like
yeah.
and that way you still get the freedom of pulling the models and having the sort of the functional space of the movement tray shrink,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
right?
Oh
Whereas
yeah.
And
it,
then the additional thing I'm going to do is just get MDF bases because most of my stuff is already
Yes.
magnetized. So just get
Mhm.
MDF bases and take that corner tray thing even further, and then
Yeah,
just make little.
That
Nobody
I
saw
think,
that made a
that
little
who's
hand
listening. Yeah,
gesture
I made a little
for
hand
yeah,
everybody at
gesture.
home. Yeah.
and a
Yeah,
sound effect. That was part of the podcast.
yeah,
That's what it was. It was like that was
yeah.
a hand sound apparently. But I think my thinking is kind of along those lines too. And where I was coming down with it is, all the armies I have right now, which are mine, and not just Miles's in my basement that I might play. They're round based or they're square based that might be rebased at some point. So like Beastman or like my Chaos, which is clearly an Age of Sigmar thing. So I'm like, how can I have my cake and eat it too? And I was kind of going the MDF route. I'm thinking, if you're in that situation, I can't see any reason why I wouldn't just, get printed out all the unit sizes I need with the circle cutouts of the appropriate size, where it's already been rebased. Just put in enough of them to show the representative unit standing shoulder to shoulder, however many fit. And then
Right.
I'll have a D20 to say what the actual number of units or models are supposed to be in that
Yeah, there you
break.
go.
Yeah.
Count it down. There's no reason to make it more complicated. It's still great looking, fully painted ranks of models, unit fillers, whatever it might be, but then I can go play Age of Sigmar when I have done my old world game. And I don't have to like have two armies of the same thing.
Now, the alternative to that I've thought about because Will was bringing it up in the Discord
Hmm.
about some of the Beasts of Chaos bases actually being larger on the squares.
Yeah.
I was thinking of actually taking some of those movement trays, the magnetized ones that I have,
Hmm.
and then getting the MDF like block for however many, like 10, whatever, and
Hmm.
then taking the magnetized one and putting it up at an angle so that I have the actual area where the two units can connect, but the overhang will still have the
Oh,
area for the
interesting.
larger bases. So I can just kind of like slide into the unit and then have it look like they're jumping off a cliff to attack them or something
Oh,
like
I
that.
see. So
Yeah.
yours is definitely the more modeling intensive and awesome version where it's like dynamic. But
Yeah, read that
I
as
think it'd be
just
cool.
more work. It's just more
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
That's what it
Yeah.
reads
Nice.
as to me.
I'm just imagining like, I don't know, like the version of it where, they want to have a unit which is like 5 wide, but in a circle basis, they only fit 4 wide. But it's like, okay, there's 16 rather than 20 in this block, but here's the dice that says how many they really are.
No,
Yeah.
well, and
And
I imagine once you figure it out once, you will quickly realize like, oh yeah, this type of block always has 6 guys you can't see, and then I only have to count to 6, and then we're done.
yep,
Yeah,
yeah.
You
then it's the
know?
number in there, and you move them from their slotas, and it's great. And I think that, not in the past, but right now, unless I'm mispredicting this, people will have a high degree of tolerance for this sort of thing because this is not a game where people are coming in fresh and painting up a whole Khemri or Bretonnian army for the most part. They probably already have it. Many people already have an army.
Well, maybe they've rebased them already and they're sad about it. Especially when it comes to Bretonians and a certain Flesh Eater
Yeah.
Courts army that Miles had.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
I definitely, yeah, painstakingly rebased a bunch of Bretonnians to be Flesh Eater Courts. But I think I did the math out, and I think I have a whole 2,000 point Bretonnian army, not including the stuff that I rebased to Flesh Eater Courts.
Nice. Is that
Because
also in my basement?
yeah, it is.
Oh, cool.
Because I think the armies, the old world armies have shrunk from the eighth ed because they were getting a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, pretty bloated. Remember the 40 men was like the standard. If you had an infantry unit of less than 40 people, what were you
Yeah.
doing?
I think I was running a block of 60 peasants at one point. That was like my core anvil block with
Mhm.
the damsel up front with something that gave him a 5-up ward.
Was it that creepy relic thing they like push around? That was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that was a cool thing. I never had that model, but that thing was always like, I don't know, it was always something like I aspired to have, and maybe they'll
Yeah.
come out with a new one.
Like
I
OG Zenestra, that's what that was.
I could, yeah, very much, right? It was like just a retelling of that model for
Mhm.
cities. I for one am just extremely happy that vampire counts haven't made it. They're like they're not going to get support moving forward
Interesting.
Mhm.
because after rebasing 110 skeletons and like 120 zombies, I am not going back. I don't even care. I'm not making movement trays for that. They can go like sit in a pile of Soulblight Gravelords on
Yeah.
circle bases. I'm done. Not doing that again ever.
I think I'm obviously for some people it's going to be a bummer that their favorites Warhammer Fantasy Army didn't make it into the old world, didn't make that cut. But I'm hoping, a lot of the ones that didn't make the cut are like Lizardmen who have a perfectly good home
Yeah.
now, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And maybe some of those other factions that didn't make the cut will be finding a new home. Maybe there'll be new Dark Elf stuff coming out or new. I'm trying to remember which other ones didn't make the cut. Chaos Dwarfs, I heard rumors in the wind of
I
Chaos
would
Dwarfs.
love that.
Oh,
I would
please,
love
please have
that.
those made. That'd be so much fun. Yeah.
Although
Oh,
now I do finally have a use for that Hell Cannon, Miles.
Excellent. The thing
you did
that
it.
you could kill a man with that model. That thing is so
Yeah, it's so dangerous.
It's probably been done some tawdry case somewhere.
So dangerous.
All right. Well, lots to look forward to with it, but at least we have some life hacks to kind of get it on the table without, having too much of a terrible time or hand wringing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
No,
like all things, it'll figure itself out, and
Yeah.
I
we'll
think
all
that'll
just
be
enjoy playing the game.
absolutely. I picked up a dwarf army box, the classic one, the one you're thinking of.
Mhm.
You're thinking dwarf army box, that's the one. Uh, from a guy here locally, Gary, and it's like 1,300 points, just that one box with the new,
Nice.
right? Because it's like 100 infantry. I mean, it's dwarf, so it's all infantry, but it's 100
Mhm.
infantry and 2 war machines. And so I'm
Nice.
like, sick. I'm good to go. 1,000 point game, sign me up. Don't have to do.
Yeah,
It's going to be so
I
fun.
I put the Wood Elves point together, and I'm like way over 5,000 points with them. I'm like way too much, way too
Yeah.
much.
I haven't even done that yet. I plan to with my high elves. They'll be ready.
Your nighttime high elves.
No, they're just from the edgy community. They're the one that gets the other high elves in trouble.
Yeah.
They're the edge lord high elves. Yeah.
I mean, which they already were, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Oh, where are you from? This is Edge Lorthern.
Pointy eared jerks.
Oh, nice.
On that note, oh.
Oh, we come to a good place. No, I think, yeah. I think this is a good place. Thanks to everybody for listening. And as always, like, comment, subscribe. I don't know how you do that on whatever form, wherever you're listening to this on,
You
but
push
I'm sure you
the
will.
buttons.
Yeah, exactly. Push the buttons.
Push the buttons.
Push the buttons, spread the word, tell your friends, tell your mother, tell your wife, tell your
Exactly.
relatives, get them into Warhammer, then have them listen to the podcast.
Join
There
us
we
on
go, yeah.
Patreon, do all the fun stuff. Obligatory statement here. We appreciate you all. And,
Yes, of course.
Dang,
Right there,
that
we're
was
doing
the
it.
last word.